You know, a really big part of me wishes that this movie wasn't called Godzilla X Kong: The New Empire, but instead Giant Ape and Dog, the story of Doug. No spoilers. This bit here is no spoilers. If you want me to get into some of the spoilers and stuff like that when it comes to this movie, please skip to this timestamp here that you see on the screen right now. If you've watched any of my other videos talking about Godzilla X Kong, that my expectations for this movie were low. Having now sat down and watched it, I loved it. I had a lot of fun with Godzilla X Kong: The New Empire. I actually do have a bit of a story here that admittedly really made me enjoy seeing this movie and added to my enjoyment as a whole. And sitting beside me, because again, this theater was pretty packed, was this kid that I think was no more than 8 years old. He had a Godzilla toy. He was all excited. Man, if I was there at 8 years old sitting watching this movie, this film would have completely blown my mind. There's something about witnessing this young kid experiencing Godzilla for what might have been one of his first times. It was kind of beautiful. I know that might be a little overly sentimental, but there's something about it because we were all there once, and being able to actually experience it live, right beside you. Another fan being kind of born. I think that's awesome. To wrap this up really quick, when seeing this film again, I'm never going to have that out of my head. I'm never not going to be able to watch this movie and not think of that kid. And that's a good thing, in my opinion. It's just going to add to my enjoyment of the film overall. I know everyone has been saying this, but Godzilla fans right now are truly having their cake and eating it too. Something I did not think would be at all possible. If you want your dark Godzilla, which is something more to my personal taste, I like the existential dread that the Japanese films seem to be capturing with their Godzilla. But if you also want fun, lightheartedness, or total madness in the most real way possible, then the MonsterVerse captures that. I like this more than Godzilla vs. Kong. And the reason comes down to this one word. Simplicity. Not that Godzilla vs. Kong wasn't simple, but this is even more simple. And it seems that Adam Wingard feels more comfortable now in this universe than in Godzilla vs. Kong, where it kind of felt like he was shackled to the previous movie, Godzilla King of the Monsters. Now he's free to tell the MonsterVerse that he wants to tell, which is why I'm excited for a third movie. This movie expands on the world without getting too bogged down in details. It gives us just enough, but doesn't linger on it for too long. The long moments where there are no human characters, and told through nothing but visual storytelling, I think that's one of Adam Wingard's greatest strengths in his other movies outside of the MonsterVerse, is his visual storytelling. I thought that was a plus in Godzilla vs. Kong. It's even more so in this movie. And also the theme of home, and it being destroyed or changing its shape over the course or in spirit. I liked that sort of this thematic essence that has been kind of carrying throughout several of the MonsterVerse movies, but really is brought, for lack of a better term, home within this movie. I liked that motif that kept appearing. Adam Wingard's, as I mentioned before, his visuals are just amazing. I love his use of neon lighting is so new to Godzilla that in even his music choice is so cool and so new for Godzilla that I immensely enjoy it. Even if that style often makes me kind of forget the scale of the monsters. This actually kind of reminds me of how special effects director and cinematographer Sadamasa Arikawa filmed his monsters in, Godzilla vs. Sea Monsters, Son of Godzilla, and Destroy All Monsters. You sort of lose that sense of scale, but you're always in the middle of the action when it comes to the monsters. So it kind of reminds me of that if you want to compare it back to the Showa era. I also found that this movie had a better music score than Godzilla vs. Kong, and the biggest reason why I like that is the synths. I am a sucker for synthwave. That was a genre like dubstep that I thought I was into for a little while, but it would die off. Nope, it's now been 10 plus years, and I'm still listening to synthwave and still love everything about it. Clearly Adam Wingard does too. The tonality of this movie is consistent from beginning to end, despite the human characters annoying me a little bit. All I would say is I wish they just toned down on the human comedy and let the scenario itself be the comedy. Because there's lots of moments of the monsters just being monsters, and that is the comedy. That's funny. Well, highly enjoyed this movie. I enjoyed every moment of this movie. From nearly from beginning to end. Not much really to complain about because I knew what I was getting into when going into the theaters. I also had, admittedly, low expectations. I left the theater highly surprised at how much I enjoyed this movie. And I'm glad I did. I'm really glad that I did. That and Monarch. I think the Monsterverse is doing okay right now. Spoilers, ladies and gentlemen. So some spoilers going from this time forward. The world building in this movie is brilliant. I loved how Adam Wingard handled it. Again, Adam Wingard seems to feel more comfortable in this movie than he did in the previous film. I don't even think it needed some of the exposition that we got within the temple. With those natives, one of the human characters is clearly just sort of saying out loud what the legend is and everything, and expanding upon the lore. It's not about the words; it's more about the actions and feelings, and I think that permeates throughout much of the MonsterVerse films, starting with Kong Skull Island. That the words don't so much matter. It's the actions that we see, the actions that we do, and the feelings that come across because of it. It's visual storytelling, and I do really like that. There's a scene where Kong crosses this bone bridge, and it's a creature much larger than he is, and we already know he's something like 400 feet tall. I love the implications of that. That this world, this hollow earth, is so vast, so old, and so big that there's creatures much bigger than Kong or Godzilla, and I love the implications of that. Admittedly, for a while there, and considering that there was a trailer for this before the movie actually began, I thought I was watching a Planet of the Apes movie for a little while. Kong with all of those apes and everything marching about and fighting or almost having outright conversations, which again is why I think this harkens more to 70s era Godzilla than anything else. I was not expecting to see an army of Kongs in this. I know we saw some of those in the trailers, and granted, I was staying away from a lot of the trailers, and I'm glad I did, but I know we had a few shots in some of the early trailers of lots of apes, but I genuinely thought those were going to be like flashbacks. And it also adds to this sort of this thematic essence that's permeates throughout all of the MonsterVerse films, even from the original 2014 film, this theme of family, of being together and not alone. There's this idea of working together, being together. Probably the biggest example in this is that Kong must team up with Godzilla as they did in the previous film. But you also have Gia and her adopted mother, where you go, I go. I love that. Baby Kong losing his parent, or what I'm assuming is his parent. I know he's got a name, but forgive me if I call him Kiko, because that's the name of Son of Kong in the original Son of Kong. So if I call him Kiko, please forgive me. That is totally 100% out of habit. I know he has a name. I don't think they ever say it once within the movie. I love Kiko teaming up with Kong at the end, helping him fight Scar King and Shimo. I think it was a wonderful little bit there. I genuinely love it. He's got Baby Kong kind of has this little arc that I like. It's very simple, but it's done completely through visual storytelling, and I really like that. I love how Kong also needs a new tooth. That's something that we never think of when it comes to this universe. What if a kaiju gets a tooth infection? They're just gonna die. I really like the implications of that. I like the fact that Adam Wingard and Simon Barrett actually thought of that shit. That's something not even I could think of. It was really cool to watch. I love how Monarch handles it too. I'm really glad Monarch is back, and it's not just the generic corporation Apex. I'm really glad it's Monarch again. I hope Apex is actually kind of done within the movies. I want to see Apex expanded upon within Monarch Season 2. Scar King and Shimo are really cool. They are both just really cool antithesis to Kong and Godzilla. I like how Scar King is actually quicker than Kong, and we know that Kong is quicker than Godzilla. I love that that escalation. I also love how Godzilla is heat. Remember, Godzilla King of the Monsters, we have burning Godzilla, even though I think they completely wasted it in them. Well, Shimo is ice. I love that element of Scar King using pain to control Shimo. I really enjoyed that. I thought it also gave them a really interesting dynamic, which pays off. It's something that's established and then pays off at the ending of the movie. And I love the image of Kong riding Shimo like a horse. That's so ridiculous, but I love it. I love that image. I gotta say this, I guess global warming isn't a thing within the Monsterverse, because it's explained that Shimo basically caused the last ice age. The implications of that are rather interesting. And I think it also hints that Shimo is what froze King Ghidorah in King of the Monsters. Like, how King Ghidorah was encased in ice? Yeah, that's because of Shimo. I think that's what the implications were. I could be completely wrong with that, and please forgive me if I am. The monster fights are not overly bloated unless that was purposefully so. There are a couple of moments where you're kind of like, oh my god, what am I looking at? Oh my god. But that was the intention, right? It wasn't just CGI overload, and I really enjoyed that. The example that I'm thinking of here, the monsters flying through the air because of the gravitational fluctuations that are going on with Gia's people. That I found that entire fight I thought was absolutely fucking insane. When they go through the portal and suddenly they're in Brazil, I laughed at how in the Hollow Earth they were falling, but once they go through the porthole, suddenly they're being shot out like a cannon and then need to fall again. And the monsters are all like, what? Huh? And then they come to their senses. I really like that. They're just as kind of dazed and confused as we are, and then it scales it back to where we understand everything. Amazing what you can do with visual storytelling, isn't it? I wasn't expecting to hear 80s pop music in a kaiju fight, and I liked it a lot. It totally fit the tone of the movie. Along with the 80s synths, which I've just sort of praised beforehand. It added to the ridiculousness and just shows how Adam Wingard embraced the ridiculousness. Now on to the big spoiler. Mothra is the MVP in this movie. They actually go full Ghidra the Three-Headed Monster here for a while, with Mothra, who actually is the one who brokers the truce of sorts between Godzilla and Kong. As far as I know, the trailers did not reveal any of that at all, so that was a very enjoyable twist. And I also love how Godzilla just listens. Like, he sees her, and she goes, "My queen," and instantly listens to her. Now, you notice that throughout all of this that I have not talked about the human characters much at all. And that's because they work. They work. And that's about all that I can say about them. They're nothing great. They're nothing special. They're exactly what I was kind of expecting. I thought the podcaster gets a little bit annoying, and I think killing Mikkel, that character, was a mistake, mainly because I think that actor is amazing, and I think him going through a bit of a beta male to alpha male arc would have been at least a little bit interesting and add a little bit more depth to these characters. I think killing him was a mistake. Jai and her adoptive mother are definitely the best of the human characters, or Gia, I should say. I think it's Gia. Whatever. Those two actresses have amazing chemistry. And I think Adam Wingard picked up on that because they are the human heart of that movie. And they work. They don't have many scenes, but the scenes that they are together are the best scenes, So I enjoyed them. So overall, I had a blast here. Low expectations going in. I kind of knew what I was expecting. Left the theater highly enjoyed and loving the movie. I had a lot of fun. If you want a more in-depth analysis of everything, I do highly recommend that you watch April's ANP livestream. Once again, I'm going to be joined by Lucas, so we're going to have a fun conversation about this movie there, I guarantee you. So I hope to see you there. That will be a live stream, most likely coming out at 8 p.m. Eastern Time on a Sunday. So thank you all for watching. All my social media is in the description below. You can see other videos talking about Godzilla and everything like that there within the Godzilla vlogs. And in the end, this is Adam Noyce of AN Productions saying sayonara.